If you watched my last video, then you know Trump pulled up to ATL. And why that's significant is because that's Fani Willis territory.
Nice to see everybody.
How you doing, Trump?
I'm doing good.
I love you, man.
Good. You look good.
I love you.
Yep.
Everybody straight, man.
Everybody having a good time? Get ready. Yeah, I'd give you one.
Fani Willis, or Fani Willis, however she says her name these days. She's been found, inconsistencies were discovered by the Department of Justice. And this is an article that I come across again from MSN. So let's go ahead and dive into it real quick. Okay, so we hear Fani Willis inconsistencies discovered by the Department of Justice. Let's go and get into the article. The Department of Justice discovered alleged inconsistencies in Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's use of some of federal grant money, according to new report. Now, if you've been following the Fani Willis story, this is not at all a surprise. In fact, this is actually something that you already knew, simply because, I mean, the money that she's receiving, yeah. Willis has risen to national prominence for leading the Georgia election interference investigation against former President Donald Trump. Her probe focused on his call to Secretary of State Brad, I don't even know how you say it, let me try to say it, Raffensperger, in which he urged him to find enough votes to tilt the election in his favor, as well as alleged plot to submit a false slate of pro-Trump electors to the Electoral College. Let's go and continue reading this article. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges and has accused Willis of targeting him for political purposes since launching the Trump investigation. Her conduct has faced heightened scrutiny from conservative critics, including congressional Republicans who have raised questions about her use of federal funds. I mean, honestly, you would have to raise questions, especially when you figure out she's paying one of her employees, and that's in the same position as other employees, way more. Not only that, they're going on vacations and they have a sexual relation. Yeah, some inconsistencies are there. Quote, during our review of the, let me go back. Quote, during our review of the award to respond to this inquiry, we have noticed some inconsistencies in what Fulton County has reported to the federal subwards reporting system, and we are working with them to update their reporting accordingly, end quote. A Justice Department spokesman told the conservative publication. Specific details about the inconsistencies were found. Specific details about what inconsistencies were found, what the specifics grant was intended for, or what the funds may have been used for remain unconfirmed. Look at me, y'all. I'm fumbling to play on my words, but it's all good. Yeah, shorty, I'm sure if you follow the money, which is a phrase that I learned from Dan Bongino, if you follow the money, I'm sure somewhere down the line, you're going to find the corruption for sure. And it also says here that Newsweek reached out to Fani Willis and her department via email, and they are yet to receive a response. We have Judge Joe Brown speaking on, man, I'm going to just say this. He went off on Fani Willis for sure.
Might not have had to testify in the first place. When she walked in through the sheaf of documents down on opposing counsel's table, put hand on hip, walked up with attitude, doing snake charm thing with her neck. At that point, the lawyers for the DA's office were arguing that she did not need to testify. She decided to override those lawyers. And one important aspect of this case is she was not on trial. She was merely being a witness at that point. And then she put herself into a position where you have the spectacle of the chief prosecuting officer for a major American city, Atlanta, needing to take the Fifth Amendment. So, one of the things that's interesting is that she had given evidence that there was a tax lien on her home. Now, to clear those up, you have to deal with some affidavits and satisfy IRS that you should be placed on an installment payment plan, all right? Then she's talking about she's got $15,000 in cash in the house. Then we have all of these cash transactions that should have been receipted and recorded. They weren't. You have the 501k she talked about. She got out.
Going out bad.
And she used that for campaign purposes, but that was taxable income once she removed it from the account. She didn't report that. So we've got a real live mess going on here in terms of tax fraud, tax evasion, and that kind of thing. We've got a specter of money laundering here that raises itself. We have a number of issues that she brought out. Nobody had developed them before that actually, ironically, put her under the spotlight that comes from the Georgia RICO statutes that she's proceeding against Mr. Trump under. So my, you get on the stand and you were prosecuting somebody and you blurt out stuff that under oath recorded, everybody looking. It makes you look like you need to be prosecuted for the same statute. Now, on the thing that people are getting sidetracked on, well, she had this affair. It just happened. You know, they ran into each other on the job. No, she had this affair going before he got brought in as a special prosecutor. Well, it really doesn't make any difference, because if she was dealing with him before he got appointed, she should have approached the judge in camera and advised him of his or her ethical conflict. And if it developed afterwards, as soon as it did, she should have walked in and talked to the judge in camera, and that means in his chambers confidentially about it, and given him the option of saying, well, he's got to go because you're signing off on his claims for reimbursement. So you do have some say in what's going on, and because of what you said about your intentions toward Mr. Trump before the election even occurred, we needed an independent counsel. So this is bad. Now, if the court said, well, I think you can stay on, but we're going to have to reveal this to the other side, she might have had second thoughts and said, well, okay, we'll let it go. And some other DA's office can come in and go through all of the changes relative to this case. But I want to have it so badly, I'm just got my hooks in it. I'm not going to let it go. I don't tell. So either way, if it started before he got on as special prosecutor or it started after he was already on the affair I'm talking about, it's bad because she should have brought it to the court's attention.
It's a very good point. Let me just stop you there just to organize the thoughts for the audience. I'll take them in reverse order. That's a very good point about how she should have gone to this judge once the affair started, by her own admission. You know, we have reason to believe it started long before she hired him. But let's say they're right that it happened in 2022 after she brought him on board. No question at that point, she was paying him well above what the other prosecutors were making that she had brought in. And she was certainly paying him well above what any prosecutor in her DA's office was making. So by any measure, more than people who worked as DAs under her were making. And she was enjoying the fruits of that labor. There's no question they were taking trips together. He was footing the bill. She now says she was reimbursing him, but there are no receipts. But your point is she had an obligation to go to the...
Of course there's no receipts. Of course there's no receipts. How convenient, right?
Judge at that point and say, I've brought in this person. I am now in a romantic sexual relationship with this person who is getting paid above market versus my own DAs and versus the other two prosecutors who I've brought in. And it has the potential to look at least like a conflict of interest for me.
Of course it is.
And Judge, it's up to you whether I should withdraw from this case or what should happen from this case. She had an obligation to bring it to the court's attention.
All right, exactly. Nobody had to ask her. Under the canons of ethics, she had a need to come in and advise. Now, here's the other thing, too. She signs off on this, and you have to get a perspective for the exorbitant amount of money he was being compensated for. This case has not even been set for trial, but he already been paid roughly twice what the Attorney General of the United States of America gets paid per year for handling all of the business of the country. He has been paid so far more than what the President of the United States gets paid per year. So keep that into context. You multiply, well, don't multiply, but if you add up all of what the other prosecutors have submitted as a bill, it isn't even a third of what he's been compensated so far. And this thing has not even had any hearings on it, in essence, that are of significance. So we've got a potentially enormous bill that the state of Georgia, the county of Fulton, that means Atlanta, the people that live there are going to have to foot, because look, out of the same fund, you have to pay other attorneys who've been appointed when there's a conflict, and say the public defender's office cannot be appointed. And see, you have to keep in context, she is not on trial at this point, though she might wind up in that condition. But this is a hearing to determine whether or not the Fulton County DA's office is removed from the case and another office is appointed. Now, the practical matter that everybody in America is concerned with is this going to go to trial or be set for trial before the election or after the election? If before, then you tie up a candidate who is the favored candidate for a lot of people in this country, and you disrupt his ability to campaign, which is kind of out there. Somebody, New York here, another New York, somebody, Florida, is trying to get into, oh, wowee whoopee, I'm going to take over for the country and save it, and I'm going to take this guy out so the rest of them don't have to be tempted to vote for it, which is kind of crazy. 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people try to override 640 million people. It's kind of strange. So that's not right. But the other thing is if another district attorney's office gets involved, they may say, same thing that happened with her, HUR, the special counsel for the U.S. Attorney's Office or the Attorney General, and say, well, under the circumstances, we declined to prosecute. Now, you may not need a special prosecutor if you bring in another office. That would save a lot of money and expedite the matter, and I'm sure that entity would say, we need time to get up to speed. Sure, how long you need? So that's after the election. So for some reason, I saw one of the dumbest things I've ever seen a lawyer do, which is this person came in.
Fani? Is that who you're speaking about?
And instead of acting like you see CSI and all of this stuff that people have looked at for the last 50 years, where the district attorney,
So the real question is, will she be let go of these, charges? Obviously she hasn't been charged, but of all of these accusations, will she actually be charged, or will she just be walking off with no charges whatsoever? I don't know, man. She's Democrat. I'm gonna go on the side of, she probably not. And shout out to Judge O'Brown. Got nothing but love and respect for this man. He's somebody whom has been very vocal when it comes to pointing out the things that we can't see that aren't so obvious to us, with his judge his lawyer background and all that. So I appreciate him for that. Fani, yeah, man, you trying to come here and be all, high and mighty, but you sound condescending, and you really just turned out to be hella ghetto with your approach and hella unprofessional with how you've been handling this. And I always find it hilarious that the Democrats always get caught doing what they accuse Trump of doing, bro. That's crazy, right? It's happened multiple times at this point. You know what I think? I personally think that the DOJ, they need mental health evaluations for sure, and they need to evaluate everybody, all the judges and DAs, because Fani, she just proved she was cuckoo.